Hello, and welcome back to the second video of the How to Reinhardt series. Today's video is going to be focused on the different playstyles of how to play the character, and the next 5 videos will cover just some basic information that I think everyone should learn to work their way through bronze, but like the last video, I think this info might be a good refresher for some of the higher ranked players out there. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So to start off, what exactly is a playstyle? I can't just talk about it without defining it first, so in simple terms, it's the approach that you have to playing a character. I think one good example of how to categorize playstyles is with Reinhardt. Some people prefer to sit back and rely on his range damage in Omnic form, while others want to use their Nemesis form as much as they can and get up in the enemy's face. So your playstyle is going to suit your strengths such as your aim or your game sense, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Just because everyone's given access to the same characters doesn't mean they play those characters the same way. The way that I like to categorize the different playstyles of Rein is around what ability a player favors to use, as this often directly correlates to their level of aggression. Obviously, everyone likes to shatter, so I'm not going to include that, and I also think that the hammer is worth including here, even though it's not an ability. The most aggressive form of Reins like to use their charge often as a tool to make space. They will often abandon their teams in the hopes of catching the enemy backline off guard and wiping them out before the enemy can kill the Rein's unprotected team. This playstyle is often quite risky. It may result in some pretty questionable deaths, but one of the benefits with that is that you get to cause some chaos. The enemy team tends to be more spread out, and they'll make more mistakes as a result. In some cases, your death may even result in the team being able to win the fight because the enemies are too far apart now to work together. I tend to personally stay away from this playstyle as it doesn't really match well with my patient personality when it comes to playing Rein. So if you're interested in this type of playstyle, I'd check out this video in the top right. Another more moderate form of playing Rein will revolve around the fire strike. This ability is a great way to force enemies out of common sightlines or choke points, unless they want to get hit by a 100 damage projectile. The act of shutting down territory at mid-range is a great way to force the enemies to make a decision. You can either rush your team or back away and try another angle. If the enemies just stay put, you'll find that your team is able to follow up on your fire strikes, and you're able to be aggressive and push on the enemies once you've done some considerable damage. This is personally my favorite playstyle, as it allows you to be passive at times and aggressive at other times, and requires some patience to not push until the fight looks winnable. The most passive Rein players favor using their shield mainly. This playstyle is usually considered bad, as on the scoreboard, your damage numbers will look quite abysmal and you really aren't making any space for your team. Hardly any top players will use this playstyle, but it does have some niche situations where it makes sense to be defensive. One of these is when one of your teammates is clearly better than the enemy team, like a Widow that gets multiple picks per fight. It's not a bad idea to just sit in front of her with your shield up. Another example is when the enemy team is running a long distance comp and you really can't reach them, but I'll cover this more over the next couple of videos. Sometimes you'll just naturally find yourself holding shield a lot, and that's okay. Just try not to make it a bad habit, as over time your general output on Rein will diminish. Finally, an often overlooked playstyle of Rein is one who prefers using the hammer the most. This playstyle doesn't directly fall on the scale of aggressiveness. However, it's a great way of maximizing damage dealt while minimizing damage taken, as the common practice with this playstyle is to step into hammer range, swing, then back away, and repeat. This means the enemies, particularly the tank, will have less damage and build their ultimate slower. This playstyle is one of the least popular ones out there, but I honestly think it makes sense for some players to run it. Similarly to the Fire Strike playstyle, it allows you to start the fight out passive and grow in aggressiveness as the fight progresses. So obviously there's a lot of different playstyles out here, and once again I want to reiterate that you should pick whatever playstyle works the best for you. And of course, you shouldn't just stick to using one ability in particular. Be sure to mix those up, pick whatever you feel comfortable with, and eventually you'll find yourself developing a bit of a rhythm. That concludes this quick overview over the playstyles of Reinhardt. Thank you for your continued support. More of these videos will be on their way shortly.